Hey there, Slingers. Welcome back to another Wordslinger podcast. And this week we're talking to my good friend Evan Gao from StoryOrigin. You're not going to want to miss it. Stick around.
It's the Wordslinger podcast, where story matters. Build your brand, write your book, redefine who you are. It's all about the story here. What's yours? Now, here's the guy who invented pants optional, Kevin Tomlinson, the Wordslinger.
Wordslinger.
Well, I am Kevin Tomlinson, the Wordslinger, and I am happy to have you here on this, frankly, very, very cold day in Austin, Texas. So, depending on when you're listening to this, man, we are having a cold snap, a winter vortex kind of thing. Not quite as bad as it was back in like 2021. When like the whole state froze over for a couple of weeks, but pretty chilly. I mean, today was, now I recognize there's people listening to this from all over the world. There's places in the world, places in this country that are much colder than this, but it got down to like 16 degrees Fahrenheit here this morning. I've actually kind of canceled my morning walk right now. I've been kind of doing that even on below freezing days, but man, I'm telling you, it's too difficult right now. Maybe as the day warms up, when I've got a free moment. I mean, the sun's out. It's actually kind of beautiful out there right now. It's just friggin' cold. So anyway, this is not Weather Slinger podcast. This is Wordslinger podcast, and I love bringing on guests like Evan. Evan and I, we've known each other for years now. Go way back. I think I interviewed him. Well, I know I interviewed him for the Wordslinger podcast at some point. I'm pretty sure that was the first time we had a chat, face to face, voice to voice. And we've run into each other at a couple conferences here and there. Most recently, we were at the Author Nation conference in Vegas, so it's good to catch up there. It's always good to talk to him. He's got a good perspective. Plus, he's a Texas guy. You know, we Texans got to stick together in this business. So anyway, I don't want to keep you from this interview. You're going to love a lot of what we talk about in this. And you're going to want to stick around for the note at the end. I'm sure to say something interesting. I'm going to confess to you, I don't even know what that is right now. I don't have a topic yet, but we're going to figure it out. So I'll see you on the other side. Hey, it's Kevin Tomlinson here, and I want to talk to you about something that's made a real difference in my work over the years, and that is ProWritingAid. I've been using this for years. It's hands down the best assistive editing tool that I've found. And what I love most is that it works wherever I write. So whether I'm in Scrivener, Microsoft Word, Substack, or anywhere else, ProWritingAid is right there with me. And unlike other tools, I get control over the kind of suggestions it gives me. So there's no rigid rules. It's just smart, actionable feedback that's tailored to my writing. And the best part is that the team behind ProWritingAid actually cares about independent writers and creators. They're focused on helping individual creators like you and me, not just big enterprise customers. And that is unfortunately becoming a kind of rare thing these days. And that's why I'm proud to support them. So if you're serious about leveling up your writing wherever or however you write, go to ProWritingAid.com and use the code KEVIN20 at checkout for 20% off of your subscription. That's ProWritingAid.com, code KEVIN20. And trust me, you'll be glad you did. Well, thanks for sticking around after the intro. I'm glad that you have that much faith in me. And possibly it's my guest who has attracted you, and I don't blame you. We're talking to Evan Gao of StoryOrigin about a topic, and we'll range around, Evan. I hope you don't mind, but I know that you said in the little form, the little intake form, we were going to talk book marketing, and I'm fine with talking about book marketing. And I know that everyone wants to talk about book marketing. But let's get a little friendlier than that if we can, if you're okay with that. Good to see you, man. You and I last hung out at Author Nation. So that was 2 3 months ago, our time now. Uh, did what we always do. We settled in somewhere, had some drinks, just shot the breeze.
I loved it.
That's
It
where
was
all the
great.
biggest things happen. How have you been? How's everything going? You were out
The
your
past
way.
couple of months have been a whirlwind between, Author Nation and then Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's. It's all that. So
Yeah,
I'm ready to get back into things now, though.
I hear you. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit then about let's dive in first about the big thing here because Story Origin. You and I have talked before about Story Origin on various different podcasts. I should have looked this up before we started talking, man. I don't remember the last time you were on the Wordslinger podcast, but tell
Oh, it
me
must have
about
been like
how
5 years ago.
yeah, it
It was
was
a long time ago, I think.
basically it was definitely like in the before times, like pre-COVID and all
Yep.
that. I know that that's a fact. Sorry, I didn't mean to bring up COVID, everybody.
We're trying to blank that out
We
of our
had
memories.
almost forgotten. So, how have things evolved at Story Origin since the last time you and I talked publicly?
Let's see. Introduced since then, a few features. Let's see. You can build your author website with StoryOrigin. You
Nice.
can sell direct through that author website using StoryOrigin. And then you can you do beta copies through StoryOrigin, which is a really cool feature uh, for those authors who have sent like a Word doc or a Google Doc out to your beta readers,
Hmm.
and then you hear back from them like, it was great, I loved it, and you're like, okay, but I need something a little bit more than that if I'm gonna try and improve the book. The way that the beta copies feature works on StoryOrigin is readers actually unlock each chapter by leaving feedback on the previous chapter. So to
Oh,
actually read through the book, they have to leave feedback at the end of each chapter. Um, and then comes with other stuff like anticipation ratings and ratings on your chapters and stuff like that. And so you can just get much better feedback from your beta readers. So yeah, there's that, the website builder, the direct sales. Um, gosh, I'm not sure. I'm sure there. Let's see. You can do book collections pages
well,
if you
I didn't mean to make
sell
you have to
wide
go
and all
down a
that stuff. There's a
list.
ton of stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, I didn't mean to trigger that.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
you do so much. I mean, and you've grown your team since the last time we talked. I think the last time we talked, it was primarily you. I don't think you had contractors or anything at that point, did you?
No, I still don't. It's
You
just me.
don't.
Yeah.
Just you doing
Yeah.
all that
I
stuff.
yeah, I enjoy programming.
Yeah.
So that's probably what I spend like 80% of my time trying to do is programming. And then, answering emails doesn't
Yeah.
take up that much of my time, despite the thousands of authors on StoryOrigin. You would expect I'd be swamped all the time, but
Yeah.
for the most part, I've really made StoryOrigin just user friendly by getting all of the emails I've gotten over the past 6 years. I get, since I'm also the engineer, I can go, I don't want to get any more emails about
Yeah.
how to do this thing. Let me go and change the
Right.
website so this is easier or more convenient. People don't need to email me about it. Now, that being said, I don't want to deter anyone from emailing me because that's exactly how I get that feedback and improve StoryOrigin and make it better and more user friendly, all that stuff.
Yeah, having been on the receiving side of all that stuff too, like I love that you have that flexibility, because like
Yeah.
Draft to Digital, great company, great great service, and some very intelligent, even brilliant people, kind of in the mechanics of that thing. But uh, it's interesting because the bigger the company gets, the slower it's able to respond to some of that feedback, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And so it's a thing where I certainly could. I have the potential to hire people to do things for me.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think it would actually slow down my progress, not increase my velocity. Now there's some other benefits obviously to hiring more people. But I also just love what I do, and I don't
Yeah.
really want to give up like the parts that I love. So
Well, the real
I love programming and interacting with authors. So
it's a bit like the indie author in the way that you're approaching it. Then, but so the real question, I guess, would be like, what? How are you sort of future proofing the business? Like, if I don't want this to happen to you, Evan, I promise. I don't, I know sometimes it might seem otherwise, but if you were to get hit by a truck that I was not driving, what would happen to your business?
you didn't know you're in my will?
Do not leave that to me. It will be wrecked. I will. You know what? I actually maybe I could. I would see there. I would start outsourcing immediately. So
I know exactly who all it goes to. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's good. Yeah. So I think that's the kind of thing that we as independents, no matter what our business is, often don't think about. I mean, how much thought have you put into this? How much planning have you put into it
Oh,
outliving you?
I have a lot of my processes documented and all that stuff, so it's easy to take over should anything happen.
Sweet.
So
Very, you've made me feel very inadequate. Thank you for that. I don't think I have a single, I think I have a handful of documents that my wife would not be able to access because she doesn't have, my password or something. So
oh
I need to get
yeah, you
my
gotta get a
act
password
together.
manager. You need a password manager.
That's what,
And
that's
then
right.
you don't even really need to write it all down. I don't know if we're getting too far away from
Well, we're getting
book
far
marketing
away
stuff,
from book
but
marketing, but I mean, I
but
think this is interesting stuff. You've got a different perspective on the business than a lot of us have, and I think that's what I try to do with this show is bring like
yeah,
what's going to be valuable to the author that would be useful. This is a valuable thing.
yeah,
I didn't mean to
yeah.
put you on a spot with it.
No, it's
But,
good. So what I recommend is screen record yourself doing a bunch of your stuff
oh
and
yeah, that's a
just
good idea.
doing a voiceover as you do it. Like here, I'm gonna go to this place and this is where I download this, and then I,
Look at you.
put this
That's
spreadsheet
smart.
together to file taxes or whatever the thing is, right?
And I
And then
already know that there's a smart ass
yeah.
author out there who's like, all right, I'll screen capture myself. I'm typing. I've created a character.
Well, maybe not so much for the writing the books part, but should a loved one need to take over for marketing your books or something like that, you could
Yeah,
screen record yourself. This is how I do my Amazon ads or my Facebook ads, or this is, how I put together my newsletter or anything
yeah.
like that.
What would you say when it comes to book marketing? Uh, what would you say is like the core principle that you adhere to? Like, what is it you're trying to do with Story Origin that is game changing for authors?
I mean, so Story Origin's unique value proposition, like when I set
Yeah,
out to build Story Origin, was for it to be a one-stop shop because I left my job and wanted to get back into writing. I used to write short stories in high school, but I've never published anything. But I wanted to get back into writing and write a full book. And so I went and I talked to a few authors, and they told me, oh, well, you need to get on this platform to build your mailing list, get this other platform to find reviewers, this other thing to, create landing pages for your books that are on sale, this other thing, all these sorts of different things between newsletter swaps, group promos,
yeah,
like beta copies, all this stuff, all building your author website. And I was like, okay, I see the problem here is like you have 8 different services, 5 different spreadsheets. You're doing all this context switching throughout your day between like, oh, now I need to go here and do that. Now I need to go here and do that. Instead, I wanted to build one thing where you're like, oh, I need to get feedback on my book. Like, oh, I'll just go to the place that I always go, Story Origin, and then I'll
mm,
just upload my beta copy there. And so I just wanted it to become that one place where you could manage everything. Now, that's not to say that other tools aren't useful. You can always use, if you have existing platforms that are helping you do some of that other stuff, all of Story Origin's features are opt-in. You don't like need to replace your existing author website with a Story Origin built one.
yeah.
You don't need to do whatever, right? All the other things I listed. But sometimes you can use Story Origin also in tandem with those other services so that you can get extra juice to your return. So you can build your mailing list even faster or find even more reviewers or run more cross promotions or find other authors to work with, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I like that. I mean, what weighs me down is like I have this hodgepodge of tools, and it's kind of because I came in pretty early in the game.
Yeah,
It just some of it's just residual, it's just left
right.
over. So how are you talking to the author like me who is so entrenched in the way he or she does things that, you could be better. This could be a better solution for that author. How do you address that?
I mean, you could so it's a few things. It's consolidate, upgrade, and simplify, right? So you can consolidate your existing tool set if you don't want to have a like for example, you might have a link tree, right? Like a page that just has, a column with buttons that have your links to your social media profiles, or maybe you have a Patreon, have a link to your podcast, all of that stuff. You have one service that
Hmm.
is just for hosting that single page with some links,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
probably a lot of other authors have that service, right? You don't need that.
Yeah.
You can use StoryOrigin for that, right? So you can consolidate a lot of these other sort of services. Like maybe you also use Bitly for creating like short tracking links. Well, you
Yeah.
can do that with StoryOrigin too, and you can also host them on your own domain. So they actually, instead of at the back of your books when you're trying to send people to, wherever you want, instead of it being a Bitly link, it'll be, kevintumlinson.com/ book one or whatever. And apologies if I'm using the wrong domain
No, that's
there.
fine. No, you did it right. Yeah. You did it right.
Okay. Um so uh yeah, so you can consolidate all that stuff. So that's part of it. And then upgrading. So a lot of the services that you use, you might you might be able to do the things that you do on StoryOrigin in other places. But with a lot of the features on StoryOrigin, I try to take what's out there and then improve upon it. So
Mm.
hopefully StoryOrigin does a better or provides you some unique aspect to that thing that you're doing that you won't be able to get in another place. Like instead of having your beta readers go through your Google Docs and leave comments, like using that beta copies feature on StoryOrigin where you're actually getting much more fine-grained and detailed feedback from your beta readers. That'd be like an upgrade. And then
Yeah.
just simplifying things like StoryOrigin, because it's all of your tools in the same place, each workflow is pretty much the same. So it's always basically go to the relevant tab on your dashboard, hit the create button, complete a form, and you're done. Like it's not all of the parts on StoryOrigin that you use, they all work in the same way. So when you're consolidating your stuff, it's not like you have to learn this totally new service and how the bits of it work together. It's like storage and everything is simplified.
Yeah. Yeah. I noticed that also you have a lot of stuff about, building your mailing list and that sort of thing. And we just did on Writers Inc. this morning. One of the news stories was about TikTok and how there's a now because of all the chaos happening with TikTok, there's kind of a push for people to sort of return to platforms they own to
Yeah.
promote, which is interesting because it sounds an awful lot like what I've been saying for like the past 10 years. Like, stop, giving all your juice to Facebook and TikTok and others. Uh, how are some of the ways that you are helping people with like growing their subscriber list and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so you can set up your generally the way that I recommend authors build their mailing list is first you have to answer why would someone want to join my mailing list in the first place.
Yeah.
So I recommend writing usually like a short story prequel to your book or your series, or maybe having an anthology of short stories or something along those lines that you can use to entice readers to sign up to your mailing list. And you can build a landing page on StoryOrigin for that free story that you give away. We call that a reader magnet or a reader magnet landing page. And so you can create those pages on StoryOrigin. And then the way that you can use that to build your mailing list is, let's say that you do have a big TikTok following, or you're really growing yourself on TikTok, you can also advertise to your audience like, hey, come and get this free thing from me, and point them to that link where they can sign up to get that free story from you, and join your mailing list. And then the other ways that you can also grow your mailing list, if you don't already have an established audience, is one of the best ways I recommend is by joining group promotions and doing newsletter swaps with other authors that are in your genre. So
Mm.
let's say you, me, and 20 other authors that write, thrillers or action adventure novels. We'll all put our books together on a single landing page, and then we all drive our traffic to that landing page. And so some of the traffic that I drive, some of those people are going to sign up to join your mailing list. Some of them will sign up to join my mailing list to get my free story, etc. And so we're all sort of growing together.
Yeah. I noticed, by the way, because I'm going through the list of features
Yeah.
and under the pricing plan, which, by the way, $100 a year is ridiculously cheap. How did you swing that? How are you doing that and still maintaining the ability, because this is paying for you and your wife and your kids and your home and renovations and all that stuff. So how are you making that work with
It
that little
works.
money?
It works very well. It works very well.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and and the other thing is also like I also still want to keep StoryOrigin very affordable for authors, because there are authors that make six figures that use StoryOrigin.
yeah,
And I could charge them a whole lot more money than I currently do for everything that they get out of StoryOrigin. But for those authors who are like just starting out and you know, just published book one, and they just spent a bunch of money on book covers and
yeah,
editing and all that other stuff, and they're just trying to figure out the marketing piece. Like, I want StoryOrigin to be accessible
yeah,
to everyone. And so, yeah, $10 a month or $100 a year, I feel is very accessible.
yeah.
Um,
I,
and
I
so, yeah,
agree.
I want to
I
make sure
agree.
everyone is able
And
to get on.
I am someone who doesn't pay for anything. So if I'm saying that's a good rate,
Yeah,
it's true. That's got the
yeah,
Wordslinger,
yeah,
thumbs up for approval. So
yeah.
one of the things I noticed was that you're facilitating direct sale for ebooks.
Hmm.
That is now most people when they're talking about direct sale are talking about print, but just the ability to do some form of direct sale through your platform, that's interesting. So
Yeah.
how's that working out for folks? Like what's the how's that function for everybody?
Yeah, so it's super simple to set up. StoreOrigin, I have planned multiple payment processor integrations, but right now, currently, there's only one payment processor that you can integrate with StoreOrigin, and the name of that processor is Lemon Squeezy. They were recently acquired by Stripe, actually.
Okay.
But what makes Lemon Squeezy different from other payment processors is that they act as the merchant of record. So when
Okay.
you sell a book in any European country, if you are using Shopify, or if you're using Stripe directly, or if you're using pretty much any other payment processor that you can think of, most of those are not acting as the merchant of record, which means that the first sale you make in any European country, you become liable for collecting and remitting VAT tax, which, if you're
Yeah.
unfamiliar with VAT tax, is essentially the European equivalent of a sales tax.
Yeah.
Um, Lemon Squeezy acts as the merchant of record. So when you make a sale of your book to any country in Europe, you do not become liable for the VAT and sales tax. Lemon Squeezy is the one that is liable for collecting and remitting the sales taxes.
Andy.
And you, as the author, can basically keep your life significantly simplified. Believe me, as someone who does deal with
Yeah.
paying VAT and sales tax in multiple jurisdictions, it's a little bit of a headache. It's not it's more of a headache and a lot of time to set up. Once you've
Yeah.
got it going, it's not insanely difficult to maintain, but it is a lot of work to set up.
Yeah.
And so I highly recommend before any author goes out and is like, I'm gonna set up a Shopify store and I'm gonna do direct sales worldwide. Like, be
Yeah.
aware of like the tax regimes in various countries and what you are getting yourself into.
Yeah.
Um, so StoryOrigin significantly simplifies that by integrating with Lemon Squeezy. Now, adding more integrations for like if you do want to do all that stuff yourself, it's on the list for adding like, Stripe integrations and all the rest. But
Okay.
yeah, so authors can build their website with StoryOrigin, and then they can sell their books direct through essentially the landing page for that book would be on StoryOrigin, and then when a reader wants to buy that book, a little modal would pop up. That modal would be powered by Lemon Squeezy. They process the payment, and then StoryOrigin will redirect them to the landing page where they can download the book through StoryOrigin. So, yeah, StoryOrigin handles all that stuff for you. So it's really simplified.
Very handy.
Takes uh like probably 100 times less effort to build a direct ebook sales store with StoryOrigin than doing something with Shopify.
Yeah. Yeah. I hate Shopify, man. I know that's like the go-to for everybody, but I don't know. I wake up screaming at night thinking about Shopify. Yeah. Do you got any plans for trying to figure out a way to integrate like, physical books at some point?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, that was probably, the first question I got after after I released the ebook direct sales feature, for some of the first questions I got were like, okay, now can I do audiobooks and also can I do print books?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, those are definitely on the trademarked very long to-do list.
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Especially since you've only got one developer.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that's cool, man. What are you looking at going forward? What's on that to-do list? Anything interesting?
So like the things that I just mentioned, and then there's just some other ways that I think like integrating, you know, doing direct stuff between authors and readers. I'm sure StoryOrigin could simplify a lot of that other stuff too.
Hmm.
Um, but generally speaking, I always keep like what major feature I'm working on next, like pretty close to the vest because I don't want to make any promises.
Yeah.
I'd rather under what is it? Under promise and over deliver.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, exactly. That's cool, man. Every time we talk, either either every half decade on this show or whenever we bump into each other at a conference, seems like you've always added a handful of new features.
oh yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
So
For sure.
that's cool, man. So, you kind of answered some of this a little in terms of your own origin when it comes to how you got into this. So are you not doing writing right now? You're not doing any writing?
I no.
Do you
I'm
still
I'm
have
not
that as a
doing
goal?
writing. I would still like to write. I still don't know when I'm gonna get to it because I really like writing software too. Like
Yeah.
I really enjoy programming.
Yeah.
And so I do want to write books at some point, but I also so much enjoy writing software that like in my free time, if I have free time, which is
Yeah.
very lacking these days. If I had free time, I'd probably just spend it programming still.
Yeah. 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 Well,
Yeah.
that's probably a good sign, right? I mean,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you're in the right business.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
amazing to me how often, though, I have conversations like this and that exact thing happens, So, like,
Yep.
lots of people who've built something in this business started off either already writing or really wanting to write, and off the top of my head, I'm thinking like Damon
We all have
Courtney.
the same story. We
Yeah.
all have the same story. It's all like, yeah, every other founder of some
Yeah.
software or marketing tool or whatever for authors. It's like, yeah, I wrote books and then I started building this thing and then
Yeah.
quickly the building the thing took over 100% of my time, and I no
Yeah.
longer write.
That is exactly what I'm paranoid about. That's why I tend to like just drop whatever ideas I have for something,
Yeah,
because you
you
know me,
really have to
man.
protect your writing time for sure.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the most important thing to me. That's why I've kind of been a part of like a dozen different little startups that I immediately sold off or handed off or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's just I don't want to become that.
right.
And I could see myself doing that really quickly. Like, I'm kind of a serial entrepreneur. Like I could see myself,
Very easily. Yeah.
just very easily falling into, well, this is what I do now. And I remember fondly when I used to write books. Uh, could certainly make a
But
lot
you're
more
you're
money.
the writer.
I'm the
You are
writer.
you are the writer.
That's exactly right. Where are you getting that? I just
Underscore.
recorded something about that. Where did you get
You
that?
you posted it on Facebook the other day and I saw
Okay, yeah.
it. You
That under
posted
so this current the
Hey, I
current
keep up with
episode.
you.
I'm all on board. I love to hear that. The episode that's going live, we're as we record this, the episode that's going to go live this afternoon. The note at the end that I always record, I did a whole origin story of that as a kind of mark for me, like a logo for me, and why that underscore is there and what it means.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
You're still typing away, right?
that's right. That's what it's all about. See here, I forgot I had posted that on Facebook. That's funny. Oh man. So we were hanging out at Author Nation. You got any you going to any other conferences anytime soon?
Um, because I closely guard my programming time, like you closely guard your writing
Yeah.
time. Author Nation is pretty much the only conference that I attend.
Okay.
I'll attend a conference here and there if it's like close to me, like if it's somewhat local.
Yeah.
Um, uh, then I might go for a day or two or whatever. But otherwise, I'm try to not go to too many conferences just because it would take the time out of building the new features. So
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah. And then I think there's a sort of diminishing return that happens with the conferences after a while anyway. Like believe me, I
yeah,
used to go to like 30 conferences a year. And there
yeah.
comes a point where you're just, how much are you really getting out of that? So,
I mean, I love going to conferences and meeting humans that use StoryOrigin, right? It's
yeah.
like when writers are going to do a signing or whatever and they get the chance to meet some of their fans that have actually read their books. Like I get to go and meet people that have actually used the software that I write. And so that is super awesome.
Yeah.
But in terms of like business value, I'm not sure that conferences are quite there in terms of like ROI.
Yeah.
Um, but I love meeting people. So
All right. So now here's what I'm seeing. This is the theme I'm seeing kind of evolve here, is that it's you're in the same business.
absolutely,
Your book is different. What you write is
absolutely.
something a little different. But I think there's a lot for authors to learn from this, though. Because we all talk. So I do love going to the conferences and meeting the authors. What has struck me is like, okay, when I was the face of Draft to Digital, or when I'm going and representing someone, I'm actually being paid by some folks to attend some of these on their behalf now. I was the voice of Author Nation, that sort of thing, right? Then I'm there because that's where for lack of a better term, that's where the market is, right? But I started to realize like that's not. I'm the writer. I want if I'm going to interact with anybody, it needs to be the readers. So the conferences are great. It's a good way to connect with other writers, maybe learn something new or whatever. But there comes a point where it's like, okay, there enough. Like it's what am I gaining from it beyond just feeling good about being part of a community or whatever? It has to have an ROI, like you said. I think that's something
Yeah,
to think
going
about.
to the 10th or the 11th or the 12th one is not for the year is not going to uh do anything life changing for you, probably.
Right. Unless you are, well, for you, it might. I mean, depending on the conferences you went to, but the cost is, see, that's the thing. That's what I think authors should consider this no matter what you do, whatever authors, entrepreneurs, I keep lapsing back to authors, but this show is really for anybody who is, especially in the creative field, but like if you're trying to, build a brand, build a business, that sort of thing, you need to be looking at the activities you're engaged in as, what am I getting out of this? Sometimes it's just about what you're giving out of it, you know? Like I do a lot of conferences now. It's like I get nothing out of this other than it's a chance for me to give back to the community. That
Right.
happens. Yeah.
And there is that trade-off too of just what is it that you love and what keeps you going and not burned out too, right? For those, I in terms of ROI, like is going and selling your book in a bookstore and like sitting there for multiple hours to sell maybe a couple of copies or something like
Yeah.
that. Is that, the best ROI that you could get on that time?
Yeah.
No,
I don't
probably
think so.
not.
Yeah.
Um, but like if that is what if you love doing that and that
Right.
is what like sparks joy for you as an author,
Right.
right? Then like go out and do that, because if the only alternative is like you stay locked inside your house 12 months out of the year and you're just like cranking out books and just trying to write, like you're gonna run into that wall where like you're not getting joy out of it anymore,
Yeah.
and you're just gonna burn out and then you're gonna stop writing completely. Much better for you to go, you know, do something that you enjoy out of the business, even if it's not necessarily the most optimum or efficient thing that you could be doing at that
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Yeah. Frankly, I look at like I've done bookstore signings, for example. Uh and I feel pathetic the whole time I'm sitting there. Like I'm like, oh, I had that one guy. He kind of smelled like deviled ham, but at least he came by and said hi, you know. But like, what is the point of it? It was like no one's. You might get one new reader out of that, like, 3 hours that you're sitting there with a stack of your own books that are going to get refunded because nobody bought them, So yeah, I would much rather spend my time and energy saying, okay, hey, mailing list, I'm going to do an event of my own. I've struck a deal with this coffee shop or this bookstore or whatever. I'm going to be there on this date. Here's where you RSVP. And if I don't get more than, 10 people RSVP, the event gets canceled. So make sure you show. And that's what I would spend my energy on.
Oh, have you
Guaranteed.
and have you done that?
Yeah, I've done that locally here.
Oh,
I've got
that's
this whole
awesome.
strategy, my whole strategy for 2025, but I started doing this last year, which was to think local. Total
Yeah.
local domination is what I'm calling it, TLD. Uh, that's my strategy. It's that, so you've heard people say, like, you want 1,000 true fans, right?
Yeah.
So I started thinking, I'm like, I bet there's 1,000 people in the Austin area. And so I'm going to aim at, like, how do I find 1,000 people like in my hometown? And then once I've got those 1,000, I've got plenty more than 1,000 people reading my books, but like,
Right.
I'm going to follow this strategy. It's like, where do I find it's a symbolic number at this point, but like, where do I find those 1,000 readers here in my hometown, my zip code? And when I find them, then I expand the circle out by like 25 miles and then another 25 and just kind of keep going until local becomes the globe. But
Yeah.
that's where I think we all kind of fall down. It's like, that concept of if everyone's your customer, no one's your customer. I think that all of us want to be internationally known authors, but I think we focus too much on that. I think you want to reach that level of success locally.
There's a balance to strike there for sure. And it
Yeah.
works better for authors than for people writing software for authors.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't
That's
think I'm gonna
where,
I don't think I'm gonna
yeah,
find 1,000 authors in my little suburb here.
that's where our analogy of your business and my
Yeah.
business starts to part. Although
You
that's not
have
true.
many more potential customers than I do.
I don't think that's entirely true. Maybe in the Dallas area,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't. It
yeah.
might be true, but like Austin, man, like
Austin has a fair number of
if
writers.
I threw a rock right now, I'd get sued by 1,000 authors. So, well, anyway, well, look, we're at time. Always enjoy talking to you, man. You're one of my favorite people. It's too bad you don't show up at any other conferences because I think we could hang out. But you're busy. You got a successful software business to keep running. I get it. I get it.
Well, look, we're not too far from each other. Next time I find myself down in Austin, I'll hit you up for sure.
And I might even be persuaded to go visit Dallas at some point. I
Yeah.
usually just pass through Dallas on my way to somewhere better. But
Yeah. Yeah. You can come you can see the
if I
chaos around
yeah,
my
if I
the,
come, it's
the
just
around my studio here that is not shown on
right.
camera.
We had that discussion before the show started that it's like, yeah, we have these amazing looking backgrounds, but then if you go below that screen line,
Anything outside the frame is a complete
like
mess.
it's like Sanford and Son. Uh Tell people where's the best place for them to find you in Story Origin.
Yeah, so Story Origin is storyoriginapp.com. Or you can email me personally, evan@storyoriginapp.com. Or you can join the Story Origin Authors Facebook group. My inbox is always open if anyone wants to reach out to me. You're more than welcome to. I respond to every email I get. So
Good deal. All right, man. Yeah, and there'll be links to all that in the show notes, of course. I may even go find the Facebook group and put in the show
do it.
notes. We'll see. The AI that transcribes this is sure to find that group for me. That's what I love about AI. All right, man. Thanks for that. Thanks for being on with me. Everybody else, thank you for being on with us. Because otherwise, we like each other and all, but Evan and I would really appreciate it if you were tuning in and watching. Otherwise, it's just the two of us. But make sure you stick around. We got the note at the end coming up, and you're not going to want to miss that. So thank you for being here. We'll see you all next time. I've always believed life's too short for boring stories. So I write the kind of books I'd want to read. Action-packed, fast-paced fiction. Adventure stories with characters you'll wish you could hang out with. And twists you'll never see coming. From ancient mysteries to modern-day thrills, my books take you on a wild ride. And trust me, I've got plenty of rides to choose from. So if you're ready to escape into a world of danger, discovery, and intrigue, it's here waiting. Find your adventure at kevintumlinson.com/books. Not responsible for sleepless nights. Well, I hope you enjoyed that chat with Evan. I know I always do. And I was kind of looking back. I did kind of a quick search and noticed like he's been on effectively every author-centric podcast I've ever either been a host of or co-host of. So that's interesting. So a lot of interaction. So there's a lot. It's interesting. I'm meeting a lot of people right now. I went on Tuesday night of this week. Was it Tuesday? Tuesday night of this week. I went to a local archaeological group meetup. The Travis County Archaeological Society here in north of Austin. Travis County is the county that Austin, Texas is in. And it was really interesting because I have been to things kind of similar to this before. I've interacted with a lot of archaeologists in the past, but more virtually than anything. I mean, I've had chats with a few in person. But it was interesting to kind of sit down with these folks. We went to this Mexican restaurant in North Austin. And the name of it escapes me, but it was pretty good. Even the guest speaker, who's from El Paso, said it was excellent Mexican food, and he would know. But what was really kind of fascinating to me was to sit with this group. You know, I sit down with a lot of authors, okay? Most of my conferences and other things revolve around the author community. And so I guess in my head, it works like that. You know, the way I interact with authors is the way authors, and the way authors interact with me is the way it is when you have these little groups. And this was not dramatically different. It was interesting to sit down with a group of people who have a different focus. Now, as soon as they learned I was a novelist, and as soon as they learned that writing was how I made my money and everything, the conversation tended to shift that way. Because what I've learned is just about every field out there, they want to be a writer. Everybody wants to write a book. So there was a lot of discussion about that. And sometimes it's fiction, sometimes it's nonfiction. I ended up interacting with a gentleman who wants to write a book about the sort of personalities that he's encountered in archaeology, the people who have made, great strides towards things, but maybe don't get any recognition. And some of those have passed, and it's sort of occurred to him like nobody's out there sort of cataloging their lives, and so he wants to do that. And I think that's actually very cool. So all I can do, man, I have a chronic habit of volunteering for things. Something I need to work on because I end up overloaded. And it's hard though, because he's talking about like, how should I go about this? I know I need to interview them. Do you have any tips on that? I'm like, do I have tips on interviewing? Oh yeah, man. And then my first instinct is to say, why don't we just set up calls? I'll do the interviews. I had to dial that back. There's a lot of things happening in my life right now, some interesting things, and it's starting to become very time consuming. And so I can't just go volunteering to do that sort of thing now. But there's a part of me that kind of wants to, and I think it would be really interesting. And in fact, I've got that guy's card. The more I'm starting to talk myself into it, you're going to have to reach out to me, talk me out of this. But I'm starting to kind of talk myself into it, because if I do that, I'm getting the inside scoop, and I'm connecting with a whole bunch of authors. Archaeologists. I'm connecting with archaeologists, and I happen to write archaeological thrillers. Okay, I'm starting to talk myself into this. Talk me down. Reach out to me and talk me down. But I guess the point I'm trying to make with this is that, I was branching out. Now, I leveraged my existing experience to help me adjust to that experience. There's a room full of archaeologists. We're all there to hear this guy speak. His topic was fascinating to me. It was really about sort of the emergence of deities and gods in this region of Texas, and how there's a sort of connection between these local tribal deities and like the Mayan and Aztec deities. But he doesn't think that they migrated upward. He thinks that they all sort of emerged at the same time, which is, if you start thinking about that, is what are the implications of that? If it wasn't, the Mayans believed in these gods and they sort of migrated up into the North America region, if it's not that, but instead stories very similar emerged in both cultures at the same time, what does that mean? That's fascinating. So maybe it's not fascinating to you. It's fascinating to me, because then it means that there's something that happened. There's some event or some group of people or something that influenced all that. And if you are a follower of guys like Graham Hancock, which I was hesitant to bring him up in conversations, but I've read all of his books, and many like him, many kind of in the same, we'll say, genre of investigator and writers, you know, there's an idea of sort of a cross contamination of historical events, deities, things like that between the European, Asian, you know, gods and deities, people from the gods from the Mediterranean area, the gods from Egypt. You know, somehow there are parallels to that in the Americas. So it's very, very interesting to me. Something I study a lot. So, but the real point is, I used my existing experience to kind of guide me in how to interact with these people, and it worked out very well. Turns out there's, you know, commonalities in all these groups, but the real benefit for me here was to change, you know, get a new perspective. I was talking to a bunch of people who are interested in something I'm interested in that is not writing. And, you know, we feed ourselves a steady diet of things pretty often. And sometimes that means that we're not, I guess we're not growing, because we get a little stagnant and stale because we don't have anything new in our diet. Believe me, since getting my diagnosis of diabetes, I relate to this on a whole other level, because all the things I eat now are pretty steady. There's a pretty steady diet, not a lot of variety, but it's actually not so bad. I was telling Kara that one of the interesting things that's come out of this, because I've changed just about everything about how I eat and what I eat, but it actually simplified things for me. It made it easier to figure out what I'm going to have as a meal. I've got this nice little range of things, but I can vary it up. I can create new combinations. I can experiment with this and experiment with that. But it's not complicated. It's all very simple. So if I'm going to extrapolate that outward to my career, my writing, maybe it's something similar. It's like, what if I sort of simplify things and have rather than have, like, I'm only subsisting on one type of food, we'll say, one type of meal. I'm looking at, like, what are the simplest things I can incorporate? What are the ingredients I can incorporate, and how can I combine those in new ways to add the variety I need and to also grow, you know? Maybe I may be conflating some things here, but I feel like there's a connection there. So meeting up with these folks, the archaeologists, you know, they've invited me into some things. There's some digs that are happening that, you know, they said, you know, you're welcome to come along. You know, sometimes there's fees and dues, but a lot of times there's, you know, it's just show up and lend a hand and you can be a part of this. That's fascinating to me. Now, I get locked in and locked down by a sense of anxiety about things, so I'm kind of having to slowly stretch into this, but I think it's good. Most of my interactions with people like this have been virtual, kind of like what we're doing. You know, I'm on one side of a camera and you're on the other. We're screen to screen contact, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that from a personal interaction viewpoint. But there is something about sitting down with somebody with a cup of coffee or a plate of enchiladas, which I did not have, by the way. Although I did tear up some queso. But sitting down to a meal with somebody, having a drink with somebody, there's a difference in that interaction. It's, you know, a little more comfortable and casual, but it's also we pick up on cues, nonverbal cues, without even realizing it. And so being in the same room with somebody and looking them in the eye when you have a conversation with them and struggling to hear them over the noise of the room, you know, these are all things that are useful to us in so many ways. And as a writer, very useful to me because the mannerisms, the struggle to hear someone over the ambience of the room, the smells, the tastes, you know, everything that's happening, the distractions that happen during a conversation, that is all texture for what I write. If you want your writing to come alive, and I'm not just talking to writers here, this is also applicable to other industries. I know that people who tune into the show, a lot of you are writers, but some of you are different types of creators, artists and things like that, videographers or podcasters and things, and entrepreneurs. And I think that we can all use this. It's good to mix things up. Go out and find a new group that's tailored to another interest you have, rather than your central primary interest, and interact with those people, one-to-one, face-to-face. You know, it's one of the struggles I had during the pandemic was this. You know, I actually at one point, not at one point, throughout, I found these ambient soundtracks on YouTube for like coffee shops and things like that, and it would just be the sound of, you know, people chatting, kind of mumbled chatter. You know, sometimes you could make things out. A little bit of music as if it's coming in overhead. Some, you know, the sound of dishes and glasses tinking. The sound of, you know, a coffee grinder. You know. And I would play that while I was writing in the van, for example. You know, I had my little spot. I had my system. I had my lap desk and everything. You know, I'd have my AirPods in, and they're noise canceling, so it would cancel out everything in the van. And so I was immersed in this environment, this virtual world, and that was very helpful to me because I was starting to feel so isolated. And I think that did a lot of damage, frankly, to people, to the psyche of America. I'm seeing it now. I think that created a sickness in our culture that we are slowly, I hope, recovering from. But setting all that aside, once I got to a point where I could get back out again, I was reluctant to do so for a long time, and I think that contributed to the sort of mental health crisis I went through in 2023. I think for the first couple of years we lived in this house, I didn't really leave this house except to go to conferences and things like that, which is great. I mean, you know, I had social interaction, so that's good. But I spent, you know, out of a 7-day week, I'd spend 6.5 in this office, in this chair. And I didn't get out much. I didn't get out at all and for some stretches of months. Didn't explore my area, my neighborhood. I started doing that. Really, this is one of the weird blessings of the diabetes diagnosis, was that it forced me to change. I changed the way I eat. I also I wanted to get more exercise, so I'd start taking walks, and I've always loved walking. I've always loved hiking and walking, and I got bored with my neighborhood, and so I started branching out, started finding all these new places, and then finding these new places meant finding other things, finding local coffee shops, finding interesting stores I didn't know existed, finding, you know, neighborhoods I didn't know were there. Most recently, about a week ago now, I was out, you know, doing my thing, and I just got out actually for the afternoon. I was like, you know, I'm beat, I'm tired, my brain is hurting. I've worked really hard. I wanted to get out and do something. I went to a bookstore, a half-price books. Actually, I have one of the books here. So if you're watching this on YouTube or elsewhere, there's this book. It's called The Wizard of 4th Street. It's got a picture of a wizard with a white beard and everything on front, but the backdrop is like New York City. Actually the Twin Towers are in the backdrop of this. I just realized. A quirky little novel that came out in the late 80s, mid to late 80s, that I read in high school, and it's not even typically my style of novel, but I fell in love with it in high school, and I bought a copy. This exact copy, not this exact copy. I'm pretty sure this is not the one I owned, but same cover and everything. And there's something about that story that stuck with me all these years. So as soon as I saw it for like 99 cents at half price books, I knew I had to buy it. So once I did that, I thought, I want to go find a place to sit and read for a while. It seems like I don't ever get out and just do something like that. It's always, well, I'm going to get out and I'm going to do some writing. I'm going to get out and I'm going to do some exploring or whatever. But there's something to be said for just getting out and being in a space, just, reading, just it being there, just in, experiencing where you are. And so I took this book and I ended up going to there was a park, a sign for a park I kept seeing on my drives. And I'm like, I'm going to go check that one out. And I went and found it. And turned out it was this like amazing, like lakeside park with walking trails and everything. One of like hundreds that I've found now in this area. I found a spot. I sat. I read for quite a while. Took a little walk. I think I had a conversation with some people, some families that were there at one point. So that's what I'm saying. It's like, when I got back home, I was in a completely different headspace than when I left. I left feeling exhausted, burnt, felt like I didn't have anything left in me. And that's because I didn't. There's this concept of fill the bucket. You have to refill the bucket. You can't continuously pour out. You have to allow yourself to refill. I have a bad habit of just continuously pouring out and never letting myself refill. So these things that are happening, getting out, finding a novel and sitting in a park and reading, going and meeting up with a whole new group of folks. It cost me a whopping $10 to have that experience on Tuesday, by the way. And that was me having my little bowl of queso, and I just had water because I didn't want any extra caffeine that evening, and I didn't want booze or anything because I was driving. So that's all I had. And then they passed a hat around to help pay for the meal for the speaker, and I threw an extra like $3 or $4 in that. So I think I spent like $10, maybe $12 for that evening, and got this great lecture, met some great people, contacts that I'm going to keep in touch with. So a nothing price tag for an immense experience. I think that we, as creatives, as entrepreneurs, we need to be looking for those opportunities, and not in the networking way. Not everything has to be about building and growing your business. Sometimes it's just about building and growing your humanity. And I have this theory that as you improve yourself, everything else will improve. I don't think I'm the one who originally thought of that. That sounds like something a Jim Rohn or Zig Ziglar probably said, or Dale Carnegie or somebody. But I think it's true. We worry so much about, my business isn't growing. My author business isn't doing so well. I'm not making the number of sales I need or want. I better work on my marketing plan, my business plan. And there's a tendency, and Kara's building her business right now. So we've had this conversation, like there's a tendency to occasionally let yourself be fooled into thinking busyness is the same as business. And you inundate yourself with these tasks that you think must be done. I have to do this. I really should do this. I think we kill ourselves with that stuff. I think it's actually much simpler than that. It's that idea. Simplify your meal. I think it's good to stretch yourself, to try to learn new skills and accomplish new things. But it's also good to figure out how to dial back and accomplish those same things without all that effort. Wu Wei, effortless living. That's another principle I've been studying. One thing has helped me. So I was recently named the Chief Branding Officer for a new company, or a new business venture being launched by BookBrush called Author Anchor. And This service is about connecting authors with VAs. I don't think it just has to be authors. I think anybody could use this, but these VAs are being trained in all the things that the author community can leverage and use. And the idea is to we get told all the time you should treat your writing career like a business. But then we say, I know I say this, and I'm sure you do too. Like, all I really want is to just write. So, having a virtual assistant, a VA, is allowing me. As part of my deal, I get a free VA. I'm sorry, I don't have to pay for them, but you would. But it's really a reasonable rate. I'll talk about that in a second. But so now I have this VA. And I've been saying for years I should get one. And over the years, I've had virtual assistants and contractors and things. But never anybody who was clearly trained to do the things that I need. So as her name is Aya. As Aya and I have been working together, the first week or two it was like I was busier than ever because of it. But once we kind of figured out things, streamlined things, got a process built, and suddenly I'm handing things off, and that's freed up bandwidth for me. So instead of me focusing on here's the things I should do, suddenly I'm focused on I want to tweak this book. I want to tweak what I wrote. I want to rewrite that and move this around. I'm focused on the writing. So the idea is I got to that point where I can just write. That's what's happening for me. I think it can happen for anybody. It does take some work up front, which I know is going to knock some people out. And it does take money. But the deal with Author Anchor, it's $99 a month to be part of the service. And then you are committing to, when you bring on your VA, and we help you find the right match for you. You get to interview several, pick the one that you click with. They're Filipino. They're in the Philippines, but they're very. Aya is getting her master's degree. She's doing great. But you are committing to paying them a minimum of 10 hours a week at $5 an hour on top of the $99. So it works out to about $300 a month. But I gotta tell you, man, I'm already kind of recouping that $300 a month. I'm not paying. Full transparency, I'm not the one paying. But I have gotten much more than $300 a month value out of working with Aya and I wasn't expecting that. It's been very cool, very, very cool. So I'm going to be talking about this more. This thing's officially launching in about 5 days. But go and check out authoranchor.com. Eventually, there'll be there's a holding page there where you can set up a chat with Moesha, who is she's a VA, but she's been placed in charge of onboarding authors into this program. She's wonderful. I'll give you the kind of the advantages as I've seen them as a client. Everyone I've talked to has been very intelligent, very articulate, fluent in English, both spoken and written. They're learning skills as they go. Author Anchor is training them in things like they just did a whole training for Book Funnel. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of this kind of happening right now. And they're growing. They're just growing their skill set, which makes them more valuable, more useful to you. And so I've gotten now to where I can just say, hey, look, give me some ideas about what I could do to promote myself out here, get on more podcasts or whatever. And she comes up with things. She'll draft an email, which, I approve, rewrite, whatever. But most of what she's handed me has been fine. And I know I've asked her to use ChatGPT and things like that. So there's kind of a little hybrid thing going on, which just makes them much more skilled. It just amplifies everything. So that's the deal. I'm finding that all these things that I kept putting off because all I really want to do is write, and then they would weigh down on my soul and make me feel terrible because I wasn't doing what I, quote, should be doing. Now I'm free. I'm free to do that. And, yeah. Sorry. Clearing my throat in your ear. So anyway, so that's one of my new ventures. I got something else coming up, that is going to be blockbuster for me. But it's a thing. I've talked about this a bit before. It's like 2 years in the making, but Kara and I were joking because I'm like, I feel like instead of 15 feet from gold, I'm just 5 feet from gold now. I can't wait until this happens, because what it's going to do is open up a whole new door, not just for me, but for the entire indie author community, because it's a new opportunity. It's something new that I can't even talk about. It's so frustrating. Because I know it's going to be amazing for you. I can't wait. But it clicks with, I'm able to do this alongside of what I'm going to be doing for Author Anchor. But anyway, you're going to see me if you're going to any conferences. The first one up for us, they're sponsoring me to go into Writer MBA in New Orleans. So I'll be there. I'll be doing a talk there. If you are in the New Orleans area and if you're going to be attending that, give me a shout out and say hi. We're already booking me at Nink, booking me at Author Nation. I'm reaching out to BoucherCon to see if I can get in there. Talking about this stuff and other things. It's all clicking together. It's really interesting how it's all coming together. And all of this is the same sort of thing I'm talking about. Like, I'm branching out. And even though these are all in the same sort of space, it's like it's like these puzzle pieces that are clicking together for me. So, and what's really incredible to me and what I love about it is that it's also a chance for me to benefit my author community and more. The stuff that I'm doing, it applies to more than just the author side of your life. It's just we can do so much more with this. So anyway, if you are interested in a VA, definitely go to authoranchor.com. Tell them I sent you, and they'll actually give you the first month for, rather than $99, will be $49. And you still got to pay for the VA's time, and that's completely separate, by the way. What you pay the VA is up to you. And if you have questions about it, I've had people ask me some interesting questions. The exploitation question has come up, so maybe I should just go ahead and address that. But in talking to Aya, the exchange rate of the U.S. dollar versus their local currency is there's such a gap there that she's able to pay. She's going to college with no debt. She's getting her master's right now. She's got a great apartment. I've seen the apartment on video. She's got a great apartment. I think she has a roommate, but they live well, dresses well, eats well. I mean, it's just this tiny bit of money from the U.S. is like a fortune for them. So the way I work with her, she doesn't do crazy hours. We actually have it set up so that she can work anytime she wants, however she wants, and we offset the time. Like, she just drop things into Slack. I use Slack and Notion, and we're good. And I set her up with their own email address. I got everything. The bulk of my time in this has just been getting her set up so that I can just set her free, work whatever schedule you want. And we have the tasks, and as long as the tasks get done, I don't care when she does it, how she does it, what she's wearing when she does it. I don't care about any of that. So I say that because I had a whole conversation on Twitter about this. I don't like the tack that Elon Musk is taking with the way he approaches the work from home crowd, as if simply working from home is somehow inefficient and a waste of people's money. As someone who has worked remotely his entire career and who has employed and contracted hundreds of people remotely over the years, very successfully. I can assure you that the efficiency is much greater from the work from home crowd than it is with the sit in the cubicle crowd. So you can fight me on that if you want. I will go to toe with you, man. I have seen both sides of this. I have worked in office spaces in the cubicle farms, and I've seen firsthand how it is an utter waste of all time. All time. There is nothing that I did in an office space that I could not have done faster and better if I had just been working remotely at that time. Nothing. So, so whatever. Okay, look, we're at the end. Glad you stuck around. Hope you got something out of this note at the end. I feel like I kind of feel like this is the show for me now. You know, I feel like the note at the end is actually the point of doing the Wordslinger podcast for me. So maybe you feel the same way. If you do, make sure that wherever you are, that you like, share, and subscribe. That helps me. Leave comments where you can. I don't see comments anywhere, really, unfortunately, except when you leave them on either YouTube or Substack. And speaking of Substack, that's kind of where I'm trying to get everyone to kind of, build up mass. I actually just connected with some interesting folks there. Some people that I've always kind of liked and admired have started following me on Substack, and so that's been an interesting transition. But go to kevintumlinson.substack.com. Of course, I'm gonna you'll have links to all this stuff in the show notes. But anyway, hope you're having a great time. Hope you're not freezing out there. God bless you. Stay warm. I appreciate you being here, and we'll see you next time.